It's the season for brand new mulch, and Brown's Tree Service has got your yard covered. Brown's Tree Service utilizes hardwood mulch that retains more moisture. Not only does mulch make your yard more appealing, it also reduces weeds, improves soil, and creates insulation for plants. Get the right mulch for your job at Brown's Tree Service. They shred it, haul it, and spread it in bulk. Or you can haul it yourself for the personal touch to your property. Call Brown's Tree Service at 785-379-9212 or visit online at brownstreeservicelc.com.
When someone has a passion for what they do, it comes through in the product they provide their customers. Just ask LaRocco's Pizza's new owner, Jason Johnson, about their crust. They make it every day and let it rise for a minimum of 24 hours before they use it for their pizza. And his staff doesn't want to do anything they won't be the best at, and you can taste it in their pizza. LaRocco's Pizza, just a half block north of the I-470 Engaged Boulevard exit. Come taste the difference.
It's time for Real Estate 101 with the Carrie Brown team from Preferred Advisors.
Good Saturday morning to you. This is Carrie Brown, Associate Broker with eXp Realty and the Preferred Advisors team, and you're listening to Real Estate 101. I am back this morning with Bill Exeter with the Exeter Group. Last week, whenever we ended, Bill and I spoke, and we decided that speaking with farmers and talking about farm ground, ranches, things along those lines, that it would be good to make sure you guys know how to get your land into a 1031 exchange and how that can benefit you, and also how that can benefit you when you're ready to get out. So, Bill, you're the all-knowing on that. What would you say, first and foremost, they haven't done anything of the sort. What did they do? What's the process?
Good question, and I think you hit the nail on the head, which is first is the exit strategy. So, most investors, farmers, ranchers, whether it's a single-family house or a huge plot of land, most of them have never thought about what their exit strategy might be. And then what happens often is they get to the point where they're ready to retire. Maybe they get an offer they can't refuse on their property. Lots of reasons, and they decide it's time to sell the property. And then they'll meet with their accountant, and that's where they get that shock, where they find out that there's a huge amount of tax owed, especially with farmers. I mean, farmers have generally or typically owned the property for generations, decades and decades, and so there's a huge gain built up there. And if they were just to sell and cash out and pay the tax, it'd be pretty painful. So the 1031 would allow them to sell the farm and reinvest in other property, whatever that might be. It's really up to their goals and objectives, whether it be a bunch of single families or an apartment complex or something like that. But it really allows them to get out of the farmland, defer all the tax consequences by reinvesting in other property that would usually produce some kind of rental income that really can help fund their retirement account. So it really depends on, or their retirement bills and everything. So it really depends on what their goals and objectives are. So
this happens a lot, where we see the family is left with the family farm, and mom and dad have both passed. If mom and dad had done a 1031 exchange back in the day, or prior to having to have home health care or things along those lines, how would that have changed the things for their children?
That's a really good question too. Because in today's world, the kids may or may not want to inherit the property. We've seen some where the kids are ready to take over the farm and they want to keep on going. We've seen some where the kids want nothing to do with farming. In fact, a lot of them want nothing to do with real estate. And so one of the things you can do is sit down with your kids and find out, what would they like? What would they want to inherit? What are their goals and objectives? And perhaps, sell the farm, do a 1031 exchange in a property they would want to inherit, whether it be just some type of rental property that produces cash flow or what have you. And then you could decide whether that makes sense. What happens at the date of death is the kids will inherit the property, and they get what's called a step-up in cost basis. So let's say, generations ago, maybe they bought the farmland for $50,000, and maybe today a developer wants it, it's worth a couple million or more. In some cases, the number could be huge. They could actually sell that after death and pay zero taxes because of the step up. So if they bought it for $50,000, all that time ago, and then they pass on, the cost basis in the property for the kids is stepped up to the value, the fair market value at the date of death. So let's just say today it's worth $5 million. The kid's cost basis is stepped up from $50,000 to $5 million. The kids could sell the property tomorrow for $5 million. Their cost basis is $5 million, and they pay zero taxes. So it's a great way to pass wealth on and not have to get killed with all the capital gain taxes. So the whoever owns the farm today, the parents, they can look at it and say, well, if the kids really don't want the farm, then perhaps we just hold it, get the step up in cost basis, and then when we pass, the kids inherit the farm, get a step up in cost basis, they can sell and pay the tax. Or the kids may say, we don't really want the farm, but we'd like to have maybe multifamily property that produces rent, so cash flow. So maybe now you sell, do a 1031 exchange, and get into an apartment complex or multiple apartment complexes that would allow the kids to collect the rental income, especially if the farmer is kind of ready to retire. That would be one way to get out of the farm, but still continue to hold real estate that produces cash flow.
Obviously, there's plenty of things that you could do. Say, for instance, I know in my family, I grew up with farmers, and they had lots of land, and it was passed from generation to generation. And there was a period in that generation where nobody wanted to farm it. And at that point, my dad stepped up and my uncle and started farming. And then they also leased out some of the land because they couldn't handle it all. That's an option. Say, for instance, your kids don't want to, and you want to keep it in there, and, down the pike, it could end up being worth quite a bit more, is have somebody farm the land for you, and you just earn income off of that.
Absolutely.
So there are obviously tons of different options, but it's great that your kids would not have to pay those taxes. Each state's different, and some states it doesn't seem to be as you may not have to pay as large of taxes as you would in others. But with that being said, you would obviously want to talk to someone like Bill to understand what those implications are going to be.
Yeah, and probably the biggest question, which I could tell you probably 98% of people never have thought about it, no matter what type of property you own, you never think about it, and that is what's the exit strategy. So if you're, to the point where you're thinking about selling, or maybe you should get out, or, the first question is, what's your exit strategy? What do you want to do? What's right for you? Before you even go down the 1031 exchange path, we need to kind of figure out, what's your exit strategy and what would meet your goals and objectives? And because the 1031 exchange has to put you in a better position. And if it's not, then we shouldn't be doing that. So that's the first step, is kind of figuring out what your exit strategy is. And that might involve a conversation with the kids.
Absolutely. I know I've had a different attorney on before, and we've discussed the fact of making sure your estate is set up properly, because people, you go to an attorney and you're setting up your estate a certain way based on where life is right now. And oftentimes you don't really think about, well, what if the tables turn? What if some mom or dad need long-term care? And, the whole Medicaid thing kicks in, and all of a sudden, that poses a problem. So unfortunately, you have to kind of think of now and then after. What will that mean for the kids after? Because I know for my family, for years, my grandfather came over from England, my great-grandfather, and over the pond, England, and he was the only one here. He fought in a war. He worked in the coal mine. He settled in southern Arkansas, and he bought land. And very, very proud of what he'd achieved, because he didn't have anything. Mom and Daddy were not feeding him money to go get that land. And so most farmers and ranchers are that way. You've worked very hard for what you have, and you don't want to just lose it all if you can pass it down to your children, or, have something to show for it at the end. you obviously would like to. I know my dad inherited it, and you're very proud of what you've come from and how hard that family has worked to achieve it. So that's the whole point of this conversation, is to do the best you can to hold on to what you have earned and worked very hard for. Because farming is not an easy job, and neither is ranching. So let's talk about, let's say you do have a kid that wants to take over the farm. How does that change anything?
That probably would bring up the possibility of keeping the farm, not selling it, not doing a 1031 exchange. If the kids want to maintain the business and continue doing that, and we've seen some of that where the kids say, I really do want to continue the business. So then they can look into, how long do mom and dad want to continue farming? At what point do they want to retire? When they're ready to retire, do the kids then take over the property? Do you lease it to the kids? The one thing I want to caution people on is a lot of times the first thought is, well, let's gift the property to the kids, and then it's theirs, and it becomes their problem and their pride of ownership, etc. But a gift is different because you're giving the property to someone during your lifetime, and that does not give the kids a step up in cost basis. So when the parents gift the property to the kids are in getting or receiving the parents' cost basis. They're also receiving that wonderful built-up capital gain. And then if the kids ever want to sell that property and just cash out, they're going to have a huge taxable event. So there are reasons and times where gifting makes sense. But it's really important to sit down with your tax and legal advisors and financial advisors and walk through the thought process of, okay, my kids want to take it over and, I'm kind of ready to get out, or whatever your position might be, and then ask the question, is a gift the right way to go? Generally, it's not. You'll keep the property so that way you have control over it. And then when you pass on, then they inherit the property and get a step up in cost basis. And generally, that's a better way to go from tax purposes. You'll have maintained control over the property during your lifetime, and your kids, when they inherit it, they don't get killed with all the capital gain taxes. So that's usually the way to go. Just be careful. Don't just gift it right off the bat without talking to the advisors first.
Okay, so let's talk hard conversation. Mom and dad, let's just say, okay, so men typically pass first, dad's passed, mom is the one that's left with the farm, and she is obviously not able to take care of it anymore because he lived a full life. And looking at something like, let's just say Atria, for instance, which is an assisted living / advanced nursing home. How could mom take care of that so that there's not taxes? Obviously, she's not wanting to reinvest in property as far as rental property. What would be a good scenario to still keep that buffer there, still be able to move it towards the children, but have mom be taken care of too?
Good question. And there's a lot of moving parts there, so it kind of depends on where they're at. But let's assume that perhaps dad just passed and mom just inherited his part of the property. So usually if you're holding title correctly and the first spouse passes, the surviving spouse will get a full step up in cost basis. So in this case, father passed, wife, mother would get an immediate step up in cost basis. So at that point, they can look at selling the farm if they wanted to do that. That was the plan. Sell the farm and they pay no capital gain taxes, and then they could reinvest those dollars into something that produces cash flow to help pay for mom's fees and costs on a monthly basis for the care that she needs. So that's one possibility. And so right now the best thing to do is talk to your accountant, your tax advisor, and make sure you're holding title to all of your assets, real estate, but also stocks or bonds or mutual funds or what have you, to make sure that when the first spouse passes, the surviving spouse will get that step up in cost basis. Because that'll give you obviously a huge tax benefit, but it also gives you more flexibility. And then from there, if she's not ready at that point to get rid of the farm, maybe she keeps the farm for a while and it goes up in value some more. And then when she's ready for more advanced care, then at that point, then there's options whether the kids take it over at that point and just kind of manage it on her behalf. Maybe she sells it and does an exchange into like a Delaware statutory trust that produces more cash flow. At least that way she's still in real estate, but it's not as labor intensive, and the kids would still get a step up in cost basis upon passing. Which the whole thing is we're really trying to find out what's right for her in this situation without getting her really stuck with a huge tax bill if they make the wrong decision.
Absolutely. We're going to take a quick break for a word from our sponsors. We'll be back to talk about this some more. Thanks for listening to Real Estate 101.
Southwest Topeka has a good neighbor. State Farm agent Jim Garrison, now at 29th and Urish. If your current insurance situation has you going around in circles, get off the roundabout and stop in and meet Jim and his wonderfully efficient staff. Let Jim Garrison give you a quote and make the Garrison comparison. He's confident that with State Farm's competitive rates, the right coverage, and his unmatched service, you'll want to make him your new insurance agent. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there, and Jim Garrison is there for you, northeast of the roundabout at 29th and Urish.
When someone has a passion for what they do, it comes through in the product they provide their customers. Just ask LaRocco's Pizza's new owner, Jason Johnson, about their crust. They make it every day and let it rise for a minimum of 24 hours before they use it for their pizza. And his staff doesn't want to do anything they won't be the best at, and you can taste it in their pizza. LaRocco's Pizza, just a half block north of the I-470 and Gage Boulevard exit. Come taste the difference.
At SportsMomsUnited.com, we celebrate every athlete and support every sports mom. SportsMomsUnited.com is on a mission to put logic back in youth sports. When you ask young athletes why they play sports, their number one answer is fun. For them, that means being on a team, making new friends, having a good time, all of which are awesome memories. We add to the memories by featuring an athlete of the day and sharing their story. Nominate an athlete today at www.sportsmomsunited.com.
Thanks for joining us again. This is Carrie Brown, Associate Broker with eXp Realty and the Preferred Advisors team, and you're listening to Real Estate 101, and I'm back with Bill Exeter. Bill is the owner of the Exeter Group. Bill, real quick, tell them a little bit about yourself just in case they missed last week's show.
Sure. So I got into the 1031 exchange world about 36 years ago. Actually, I was working for a bank, and the chairman decided to start an exchange company, and outside counsel said, hey, don't have the escrow company manage it. They threw it in my lap, and I had no idea what that was. So about 36 years ago, I took a class through UCLA on 1031 exchanges, and my career did a left turn. So I've been doing 1031 exchanges and trust services for the last 36 years. It's a kind of a specialty you never think you're going to get into. You don't go to college thinking I'm going to be a 1031 guy, and then all of a sudden there you are. So it's always interesting. So that's been kind of what I've been doing for the last 36 years, and really the last 4 years has been either banking, fiduciary, or trust services of some type.
You service all 50 states, correct?
Yes, we'll do all types of exchanges. We cover all 50 states. And then if an investor has rental or investment property in a foreign country, let's say England, for example, and they want to sell that, they can also do a 1031 exchange to at least defer the U.S. tax part of it into other rental property, but it has to be foreign property exchanged for other foreign property, and we will also do that.
It's kind of funny that you talk about foreign property. Puerto Rico obviously isn't, but with EXP and revenue share, these guys are making so much money that they are buying property in Puerto Rico to try and help with some of the tax issues. So it's really kind of cool that you can have someone that knows all of those areas and knows how to answer the questions.
Yeah, and certainly each area gets a little different. I mean, you've got obviously different countries, different sets of laws, regulations, local customs, practices. Each one has a different closing process. And then we have to find out what those are, whatever the regulations and closing practices are, and then we have to figure out how does the 1031 exchange plug into that. So each one's fascinating. It's a lot of fun to do those. We've been doing them in about 45 different countries at this point. So, and every one has been different.
Okay, so now let's get back to farmers and ranchers. And obviously, let's go back to that scenario. Mom and Dad are just tired. They want to buy something in Florida. They want to spend the rest of their time, sipping margaritas and sitting on the beach. And they don't want to sell the farm. They want to be able to continue to get that kind of money off the farm that they've worked so hard for. Or say they do want to get rid of the farm inside of the 1031 exchange and be able to go and do what they want to do. What would be the plan?
So if they want to keep the farm, then my guess is, or assumption there is, they'll probably have one in the family who is going to continue to operate the farm, or they're going to lease it to someone else who's actually going to farm it. And so both of those would certainly work, something like that, where they continue some type of farming operation, they continue the ownership, and they just relocate to Florida and kind of have their retirement. That would be one way to do it. They may get to the point where they say, I'm just tired of farming, I'm tired of the operation, or I'm tired of owning the farmland, whatever the case might be, and maybe nobody in the family wants to take it over. Maybe they don't want to bother leasing it to someone else who will farm the land. So for some reason they want to get out. Then they could sell the farmland, do a 1031 exchange, and reinvest in other property that is some type of investment property. And there's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of, even today, there's a lot of curriculum that says if you sell a farm, you have to buy a farm. If you sell apartments, you have to buy apartments. And that is not true at all. It falls under the two things: qualified use. So whatever they sell, whatever they buy, has to be some type of rental, investment, or business use. So certainly farmland is both. It's really rental, or if you're leasing it to someone who's farming it, or if you're operating your own farm, you're operating a business. So that would qualify. And then whatever you buy has to do some kind of rental investment also. But if people get hung up on the term like kind, and like kind does not mean condo for condo. Like kind means you're selling real estate, you have to buy real estate. So the farmer would be wide open in terms of what they want to reinvest in. They could sell the farm, do a 1031 exchange, and reinvest in, it would be multifamily, a whole bunch of single families. It could be any kind of industrial or office complex or retail. Although today probably I'd be careful with retail today. But, storage, a lot of those things would certainly qualify as like-kind property. So they're not stuck for farm or farm for ranch or anything like that. It's a very broad definition.
You could open your own Margaritaville retirement community. Probably.
Yeah, there's an idea. You and I would have to be the first customers.
Absolutely, and free rent for a while.
That would work.
So, anytime someone is selling something that large, I know for my family, whenever they liquidated the farm, we had a lot of machinery. How does that play in to 1031 exchanges, since it's really not a like kind and it's not real estate?
That has changed a lot since the Tax Reform Act went into effect on January 1st, 2018. So before 2018, before the Tax Reform Act, 1031 exchanges actually would also work on what we call personal property, meaning non-real estate, so all the farm equipment, etc. So if you're selling a lot of equipment, you could actually 1031 exchange that into other equipment of like kind. So in that case, the like kind is very specific. Each type of, or each category of equipment would have to be like kind to the whatever you're buying. The Tax Reform Act actually eliminated all of that. So we no longer have the ability to 1031 exchange anything except for real estate. Now that's kind of a good news, bad news thing. So unfortunately, you can't 1031 exchange equipment, but if you're selling the equipment and then you're buying other equipment, you have all sorts of bonus depreciation, 179 write-offs, etc. So it may not be that painful, might even work out in your benefit. If you're selling the equipment and we're going to retire, then in most cases the equipment is going to be taxable the year of sale. So you want to kind of factor that into it. Figure out, you're probably selling the farm, the real estate portion of it, and all the equipment, probably to the same person in most cases. So it may be a way where you can really take a hard look at the sale price and see if you can allocate more to real estate and less to equipment, and make sure you can justify that. There's got to be a methodology where if you get audited, you can say, this is how we allocated it makes sense, and it's justifiable. But in that case, at least it would minimize the taxable gain on the equipment side, because equipment does, wear out and depreciate and goes down in value.
Okay, so I'm a farmer or a rancher, and I haven't put anything in a 1031 exchange, and I want to. What would be the first thing? What would you suggest they bring with them in meeting with you?
First step, talk to your tax advisor. We need to know, or I should say, you need to know first, what are you looking at? Now, in a farm scenario, you've probably had the farm in the family for a long time, so the gain is probably huge. But we just want to make sure we know, what is the gain? Is it, how much is capital gain? How much is depreciation recapture? Things like that, so we know what we're looking at. Then next, we could sit down and talk to you, kind of walk through your goals, your objectives, and what you're trying to accomplish. And then we'll see if there's any concern through a 1031 exchange process that we should have your advisors take a look at. And then from there, we can really start to work with you on that. And probably concurrently with that is when you're going to talk to your real estate professionals. They call you, list the property, and get it under contract, et cetera. So the first step is tax. Get your tax opinion, find out where you're at. Second is kind of talk about the process, your exit strategy. Third is that's when you start to put the pedal to the metal and list the property and start proceeding. Honestly, a lot of times when we get the phone call, they've already listed it, it's already sold, it's under contract, so we're kind of just getting it ready to go and processing it, setting it up for a 1031 exchange. But really, if you've got time, be proactive, get your advisors involved before you sell. That way, if there's any problems that come up, they can be fixed before you close. Once you close, it's pretty tough to go back and fix anything.
We see that pretty often. There's also an attorney here in town that I've had on, and I mentioned before, when it comes to Medicaid and your homestead and getting things allocated the correct way, don't wait too late. Don't wait until it's already listed and sold, because your farmland is going to go quick most of the time unless you seriously overprice it. So it's very, very important to talk to the people you need to talk to. So again, your accountants, and you want to make sure that your accountant really knows what they're doing, and understands the ins and outs, and then get with Bill so you know what you're doing. So Bill, how would they get a hold of you?
They can give me a call direct at area code 619-239-3091. So that's 619-239-3091. Or they can go to our website at exeter1031.com. So it's EXETER 1031.com.
And again, Bill is someone that comes to our National Council of Exchangers group, and these are guys that do this every single day, and they say that Bill is the man, so he knows what he's doing. If you're looking to buy or sell, be sure and give me a call. My number is 785-213-5188. I would absolutely love to help you. I had someone tell me recently, I just thought you were too busy. Folks, I am not too busy. This is how I make my living. Please call me, 785-213-5188. And you can also check out our website. It is preferredadvisorsteam.com. And you can see anything that is on the Kansas City, Lawrence, Topeka, and Manhattan MLS, and that includes into Missouri. And we also have Ohio, so you can check out any of those areas. And real quick, I want to plug, I have a need. I have a buyer that is going to be homeless pretty soon. They are looking to purchase, meaning homeless, their house is sold, looking to purchase somewhere around 15 to 20 acres of land. They'd love to have a pond. They have 2 young boys. Budget is up to $350. So obviously they need a house. So if you have that and you've considered selling, please give me a call, 785-213-5188. Thanks for listening to Real Estate 101. And Bill, thank you for being my co-host, and I'll talk to you again next week.
Sounds good. Look forward to it. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for listening to Real Estate 101 with the Carrie Brown team from Preferred Advisors.